Memory Lane Best 3DFX Glide Games. The year was 1998. It was Christmas time and I had just received my very first computer, an AMD K6-2 running at 333 MHz. Little did I know, from that day forward, my life would be changed forever. One of the first such changes was my shift in focus from console games to PC gaming. A few months after getting my PC, I added a Diamond Monster 2 3D graphics card powered by the 3DFX Voodoo 2 chipset. It was an absolute screamer and took my gaming experience to a whole new level. We know how the story played out for 3DFX, the graphics company that dominated the nascent 3D graphics industry for a few years in the late 90s. Having a specialized 3D API was arguably both the highlight and the downfall for 3DFX. The Glide API combined with Voodoo hardware truly enhanced the gaming experience, and during the short few years that Glide reigned supreme, several games based its 3D implementation solely in this proprietary API. Diamond Monster 2 3D graphics card. If you are old enough, odds are you owned a 3DFX card and played some of these games. Let us take you a trip down memory lane and remember some of the best games ever that used Glide. Note: this feature was originally published on May 28, 2013. We have revised and bumped it because we still yearn of the glorious days of 3DFX. Part of our Throwback Thursday initiative. its Quake 2, released in late 1997, set a whole new standard for first-person shooters. A wide array of weapons, pickups and enemies fueled this game, making it a favorite among millions of gamers. Single-player mode was acceptable, but the real highlight was network play. Players could battle against others via IPX and TCP/IP over the internet. This is one of the first Glide-based games I played, and boy did it look great. Carmageddon 2 came out in November 1998 as a sequel to the wildly popular original title with the same name. The object of the game was simple: destroy anything and everything in sight. Okay, maybe it wasn't as simple as that, but carnage was one of the key elements of this racing, driving game. Players competed in races with 3 different ways to win. You could pass through all of the checkpoints before the other racers, you could win an event by destroying every competitor's vehicle, and players could earn a victory by killing every pedestrian in a given stage. Due to the game's graphic nature, it earned a mature rating from the ESRB, but that didn't stop most people, myself included, from playing this game hours on end. Released in 1997 by Activision, Interstate 76 plot focused around the investigation of a private army of Autovillains, and when the main character's sister is murdered, you are left with the task of finding out what really happened and seeking revenge. Gameplay took place from your armor-clad, hopped-up piranha as you hit the road, or desert, and battle with other decked-out vehicles. This game reminded me a lot of the Twisted Metal series as it shared many of the same themes. Lara Croft, easily the most popular female video game character of all time. Tomb Raider opened the door to the popular series of cave-exploring, puzzle-solving fun. Tomb Raider proved to be a winner across the board. Gameplay, controls and graphics were top-notch for its time. The hit series has spawned several games and even 2 movie releases starring Angelina Jolie. A reboot 3rd movie is slated for release in 2018. Tomb Raider running on a 3DFX GPU at 640 by 480, above, versus the same game running at 1024 by 768 on GLiDOs and high-res textures, below. Blizzard's Diablo 2 remains to this day one of my favorite games of all time. Released in 2000, you could select from 5 different characters to make your way through the game as either an Amazon, Paladin, Necromancer, Sorceress or Barbarian. Players must traverse through 4 acts in their pursuit of Diablo, Lord of Terror. Along the way, gamers must also battle with several other boss-style enemies. Diablo featured single and multiplayer modes and offered great replay value thanks to the use of randomly generating monsters and item drops. Known for its breakthrough graphics, Virtua Fighter 2 was the sequel to the popular arcade fighting game with the same name. VF2 was released in Sega arcades in 1994, ported to the Saturn in 1996, and then found its way to PC screens in 1997. A major graphical achievement for its time, so much that some of the ported versions that appeared on console systems had to be redesigned in 2D. I personally remember dropping off quarter after quarter into the arcade machines. The franchise has withstood the test of time to an extent. The latest iteration in the franchise, called Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown, was released in 2012 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The original Resident Evil was first released for the PlayStation in 1996 and ported to the PC a year later as one of the first to use 3DFX's Glide API. Resident Evil has been billed as the first survival horror video game by many, setting the bar high for others to follow. The game allowed players to control two characters, Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield, each with their own pros and cons. Resident Evil was one of the scariest games I played as a teen and offered a wonderful storyline. Developers used pre-rendered backgrounds, allowing for much higher level of detail. Perhaps the most unique feature of the game were the camera angles used, which gave players the feeling of being in a movie. Need for Speed 2, say, added support for 3DFX Glide, bringing a ton of visual upgrades and making the gameplay much smoother. The second title in the Need for Speed series offered much of what the first did, hot exotics and a wide open road. But also several changes such as simulation or arcade mode. I've never been a huge fan of arcade driving games, as I rather experience the real thing, but this was one of the few exceptions, and FS2 was a great game. MechWarrior 2 was released by Activision in 1995 for MS-DOS. Later releases added support for various APIs, including Glide in 1996. The game takes place in the year 3057 and pits players in control of giant robots, mechs, on either the Wolves or the Jade Falcons clan. The single-player game featured 30 missions, 15 per team. A multiplayer mode was also available using NetMech, which allowed for several different modes and up to 8 players per game. MechWarrior 2 was a very successful game and was eventually ported to the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation. Where games like Unreal and Quake 2 took an arcade twist on gameplay, Rainbow Six was about being tactical. Rainbow Six put gamers in control of a SWAT team, allowing you to plan your mission in advance. Once a mission started, you controlled one of the team members and seeked out the bad guys, Tangos. Rainbow Six adhered to reality closer than most shooters, meaning you could die from just a few gunshots rather than being able to withstand rocket attacks. The game also featured a great multiplayer interface. I remember teaming up with a friend and completely destroying the competition. Ah, the memories. 3DFX and Glide may be a thing of the past, but the games and good times are not to be forgotten. There are several Glide emulators available, and Glide, Glidos, that will allow you to relive them on modern computer hardware, if only for the nostalgia factor. Did you have any favorite first-gen 3D games?